Is your business protected against the threat of malicious litigation and frivolous lawsuits? Are you sinking company profits into marketing campaigns that do nothing to contribute to the growth of your business? Bottled Business Sense provides practical business perspectives that uniquely emphasize both legal and media marketing strategies to protect and ensure the longevity of your business. And whether you're trying to provide a startup business with some level of stability or an established business with foolproof asset and estate protection, or simply attempting to get a better return for your business marketing dollars, Bill Bernard and Rick Moscoso will expose potential pitfalls to ensure the security and growth of your business, free from unwanted expense and the threat of litigation. You'll learn how to implement marketing and protection tools equal to those used by today's most successful corporations. Let's join Bill and Rick for today's Bottled Business Sense show.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday at 10 a.m. here on the Bottled Business Sense show. Hope everyone had a great holiday. And today's episode, we're going to talk about a legal topic as we're approaching the end of the year. But before we do that, as you know, you've heard us over the last several years broadcast here to the small business entrepreneur. And, Bill and I, we're very passionate about what we do individually, and we wanted to share that with our audience out there. And so I share marketing, video marketing, podcasting, tips and tricks, techniques out there to my user base and to our audience. And Bill, on the legal side, make sure that you're protected, you run efficiently, effectively, you're emphasized, and you're well protected as you run your business. So we can really focus on what we're passionate about, and that's running our business and making some money and being profitable. So we have a whole host of episodes in our library. You can go to the bottledbusinesssenseshow.com where you're watching this, and on the right hand side you can see all the categories that we've discussed over the past several years. And, at your leisure, go ahead and listen to them, watch the videos, listen to the podcasts as well. And hopefully you'll learn a lot of tips and tricks, best practices out there. And, you can access this for free. So we wanted to provide this service to or knowledge base to our listeners out there. So hope you find this of value. So anyway, as we are coming up on the end of the year and into 2017, Bill's topic here, I thought this would be apropos because we are coming up into the end of the year. And Bill's going to talk a little bit about the year-end financial and legal checklist for your business. But before we do that, I just wanted to bring Bill onto the show and welcome him. And how are you doing today, Bill?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Rick. Glad to be here today. And, I know at the top of the show you said it was a legal topic. It's really, it's called the year-end for your business, but it's really more of a general business checklist. It involves some legal principles, some financial principles, but I think it's important to take stock of your business at the end of the year in a number of different categories. And I thought it would be apropos to go through those for the final show of the year. And it's just around the corner, and you must tie up loose ends, of course, regarding your financial, legal aspects of any business that you have. And when you end the year the right way, that gives you really some sense of security going into the new year. You really get a feeling of accomplishment, but also you get to have a real clear understanding of where your business is ending and what you might want to do to improve it in the upcoming year. So I would say the first thing you need to do is to get your financial books in order. And, what does that mean? That's number one. Before you can decide to make any last-minute tax moves, hopefully you have an accountant on board that can really help you with the financial picture of your company or your business. And if you haven't done so, take charge of your books to determine what you've made and what you've spent in 2016. You may be a solopreneur, and you may just have a box of receipts that you want to organize, but you may also have a bookkeeper that you employ who does this for you. Some people have tax accountants who have a bookkeeper on the premises who do it on a monthly or a quarterly basis. I have QuickBooks. I use QuickBooks. I input all my own business expenses. I then download a report for the final the end of the year, and I forward it to my accountant. I do mine on a daily, sometimes at the very maximum, a weekly basis, so I never lose sight of these things. I take the time to do it, usually on a weekend when I'm not involved with clients. I then forward this to my tax accountant, and it not only provides a summary of everything for her, but also saves money, because now the accountant doesn't have to do your books to be able to come up with the end result that she needs for preparing your income tax. Yeah. So that would be the first thing I would do.
Yeah, this was a great tip, because typically for most business owners, we wait till around tax time and then you find yourself scrambling. Where are those receipts? Where's all these records? I keep them all. I keep them all in an envelope, but I input them into the QuickBooks program because now I have a record of them, and that's what I use. I only use the receipts. I only keep them as a backup in case I miss something. Excuse me. Right. It helps you prepare though too, right?
Sure.
As far as your next year's tax strategies, don't you think?
Well, not only that, but and that's point number 2 we're going to get into right in a second, but also it gives you a continual, imagine this, if you have a QuickBooks program, or you have a bookkeeper that you work with who provides you input, you're learning the state of your business throughout the year, which really you should have a handle on. But for people who really need to solidify it, you really need to do this at the end of the year and get your financial books in order. You mentioned tax strategies, Rick. If you're organizing your books, you find yourself with larger than expected profits. Now you may want to make some major purchases before the end of the year to provide yourself some deductions. Give you a good example. I buy a lot of legal programs in the month of December, right before the end of tax season, because now I've got some deductions that will help me on my income tax preparation with my accountant, and these are things that you may want to consider that a lot of people lose sight of. If you haven't set up a retirement plan, for example, you have until December 31st to execute all the paperwork with any financial institution to create a 401k or some sort of other vehicle that you can use as a basis, a SEP IRA, for example. You can put money in a SEP IRA, and the money you put in there will reduce your tax basis for the end of the year. And I don't mean to sound like a tax attorney. I'm certainly not one. I don't enjoy it. And I'm not a tax accountant, but these are basic principles that any business owner, forget that I'm an attorney here for a minute, any business owner needs to know this stuff. It's that important. So
that's awesome. So in addition to that, why is it important to really have a handle on your tax situation, especially for the year that's already gone by?
Estimated tax payments. Once you have a firm grasp on your business profitability for the year, you can assess the estimated tax payments you've already made and plan for any financial payment in January of the following year. By January 15th, you can provide the IRS a tax payment which could reduce the amount of money that you may end up owing. Now, some people do that and even end up getting a refund. Most often not. They reduce their tax liability. So the third point I want to bring home is at the end of the year, look at your estimated tax payments for, say, this year, 2016, and estimate it and how it's going to affect you in 2017. And you may want to make another tax payment by January 15th, 2017. So that's extremely important. Now, these first 3 items I've mentioned are basically financial items that you need to know as a business owner, which kind of makes this show unique, because we're combining the fact that you are a businessman or businesswoman in addition to whatever profession you practice. So now let's go to point number 4, which I say, if you want to emphasize, you mentioned that at the top of the show, Rick. For people who don't know that, that means forming a formal business entity. Hold an annual meeting for your LLC or corporation. Now, an S corporation requires an annual meeting every year, as we know. An LLC typically does not, but I always tell people do it anyway. Do your annual meeting, put the minutes in your books. If you're operating your business, you're required like I said, under an S corp to have an annual meeting with shareholders. If you have an annual meeting with your LLC, those are member meetings. Don't overlook these administrative issues, because if you've gone through the trouble of incorporating your business, you certainly want to keep it in good standing. Why is point number 4 so important? Well, because if your business isn't in good standing, and you're in litigation, it could be you could be accused of having a shell corporation. The corporate veil could be pierced, or the LLC veil could be pierced, and now you're going to be held personally liable, even after you went to the expense of setting up a formal business entity anyway. You want to avoid that, of course.
Now, you mentioned an LLC doesn't necessarily have to hold an annual meeting. Excuse me.
Not in California. Now, other states may be different, but in California, you do not.
Right. So, for those of us out there that are LLCs, what does that end of the year meeting entail, and what type of things? Without getting too much detail, what does that entail?
It entails putting down in your meeting what you've accomplished, or some major business or financial decision you've made in the past year, and what you want to decide to do for the following year. Could be one or both, and any decisions that you've made during the business year should be documented in your books. What is the business perspective? What has resulted from the decisions you made? What do you see going forward in the next year? Basically, business related decisions, and who's attending the meeting, what time of the meeting is had, and also the date of the meeting. It doesn't have to be very intricate, but if you have any concerns about how to do corporate minutes, certainly you can call a lawyer, and they'll be happy to help you to do that. I wouldn't look online for those, because many of them are so vastly different. I would talk to a California lawyer if you're in California, and get an idea as to how these minutes should be prepared. But at the very worst, jot them down in your book and put the time and the date of the meeting, what the substance of the meeting is, and who attended the meeting. I would put those 4 points down at a minimum.
Okay. So how is that different then, in leading into your next point here, how's that different from an annual report?
Well, number 5, you have to file an annual report, a check to see if you file an annual report. That's another administrative formality that both an LLC and a corporation has to do. An LLC has to do it every 2 years. A corporation has to do it every year in California. And that's typically called a statement of information, which provides the California State Secretary of State information that is needed, and that has to do with who your officers are in the company, what the company name is, has there been any change in the status of the company, what your registered agent is, all of those. And these are, I think, talked about in some other shows that we've done. But the bottom line is, we're assuming you have some understanding of what your annual report is when we talk about it on this show. If not, you could certainly give me a call and I'll explain it in more detail. But the bottom line is here, you need to make sure that your annual report has been filed that year. And candidly, this is not something you should check this at the end of the year to make sure it's been filed, but really you should know the date that it's required to be filed. Not everybody's report is required to be filed by the end of the year. So you need to know when your report is due, and make sure it gets filed within the time frame that it's supposed to be filed.
How does that differ? How does that timeline differ?
Well, it's set by when you file your company. When you establish your company, you're going to be provided information from the Secretary of State that an initial report is due, and then you're going to be advised as to when your when the window is to file your annual report. So make sure you check on that stuff, and you really should establish that at the time you have your business. Keep your original books, of course, and make sure you check on that stuff. Verify your 1099 and W-2 information is the sixth point I want to bring to bear, and that is if you've got vendors, employees, it's time to make sure your records are up to date, and make sure you give your contractors a 1099 form. Make sure you give your employers W-2 forms. Remember, overlapping with employment law is the labor law issues of making sure employees are properly paid. You as an employer have an obligation to provide them with a W-2 and all of the appropriate information that's required on a W-2. Likewise, you're required to provide contractors with 1099 forms so they can attend to their taxes during the year if they're not an employee. And there's another issue. You got to make sure you speak to an employment lawyer to make sure you know the principles upon which you differentiate an employee from an independent contractor. And we have a whole show on that in our library, distinguishing independent contractors and employees and what to look for in an employer's determination as to what that individual is going to be labeled as. Because if you label them wrong, you could get in trouble if the employer decides to litigate, and you're going to owe a lot of penalties and fees as a result. So make sure you verify your 1099 W-2 information by the end of the year for your business. Points before we end the show: make sure you close an inactive business. I mean, if you have an inactive business and no plans of bringing it back over the following year, formally close it by filing articles of dissolution or a certificate of termination for your S corporation or your LLC or your C corporation. Until you file this paperwork with the state, you're still on the books, and you're still required to have an annual report filed. You're still required to pay your yearly fees to enable you to operate the company. You still have to file tax returns. You need to take the time to close a business that you perceive is going to be inactive in 2017 or the following year, whatever tax year you're ending. So point number 7 is, if you're going in another direction, or if you're ending your business, or if you're retiring, make sure by the 31st you file those documents. They're very, very important. And then the final point, Rick, I want to bring to bear is touch base with your best customers. Your business is nowhere if you don't have customers or clients. That's pretty basic stuff. So when you prepare your year-end tax reporting and evaluate your business's cash flow, make sure you take the time to say, okay, now what do I got to do in the next year to make this cash flow better? I better make sure I keep in contact or talk to my clients or customers by year's end. It's an ideal time to show them how much you appreciate their business, and even advise them as to certain ways that you perceive improving the business from their perspective. Don't talk about improving the business, your business as a whole, but specifically gear how you're going to improve your business in conversations with them as it would affect them specifically. Why would it make them say, hey, this is going to be great for XYZ company? Who cares if it's great for WFB Legal Consulting Incorporated? Certainly, if it is, it will affect benefits for me too. But I want to know, how is this going to really affect me as your client, Bill, XYZ company? So it's important. And I'm not just talking about Christmas wishes. Touch base with them. Have a phone call conversation with them. Tell them you reviewed their client information. This is what you think would be best for them, or what you can do for them. And it doesn't necessarily always have to involve charging them. You can come up with various ideas that may gear them towards making certain promotions or things to do that would help them, that are cost effective, so they won't run into more legal issues the following year. And and when you review their files, you're going to know what legal issues, if any, they may have had for the previous year.
That's a great,
right? Makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great tip, because, I've had a couple of meetings already, and I have a couple more before the end of the year where I am meeting with some of my best clients. And we're talking about how how successful their marketing campaigns have been this year, from the services that I've been able to provide them, and how we can help improve that for next year. Because, if they're happy with what you do, then, you reap the benefits. It's definitely great advice.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are the things that take you above and beyond the average business owner, and that's why we're here, to provide this information to you. So I did an article on this. If people would like to see the article, and they can listen to the show, of course, but my newsletter article is on bottledbusinesssense.com. That's different than bottledbusinesssenseshow.com. The bottlebusinesssense.com is the newsletter, and it would be under the category at the top called Sensible Options. And I provide subject matter in that category every month for people to take a look at. I have a monthly message that I provide in the newsletter. I have a general business article, an estate planning article, an employment article, and an asset protection article to encompass the full gamut of business issues that people might be interested in from time to time. So take a look at that. Or feel free to give me a call. My numbers are 949 area code 698-6222 or 413-6535. And of course, you can reach me at bill@wfblegalconsulting.com.
That's awesome, folks. Just so you have an easy way to access this information, or the outline of basically this episode, we'll provide the link below to this blog article that Bill was referring to, and that's the year-end financial and legal checklist for your business. So, Bill, thanks again for wrapping up the year with this episode. I think it's very important information that is quite frequently overlooked, but we're all about being prepared, being safe.
That's it.
And this is a great way to end the year, to prepare yourself for 2017. So great article.
Happy to do it. And I want to wish everybody a safe and happy, healthy holiday season. We'll look forward to seeing you in 2017 with a bunch of new good stuff for your business to propel it into prosperity and to make sure it's protected in the best way possible. So take care. God bless everybody, and we'll see you next year.
All right. Thanks, Bill, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. We'll see you in 2017.